Tuzla was chosen by CRIC because we wanted to examine the dynamics of heritage reconstruction in the context of such a unique history as Tuzla had. We wanted to find out what happens to socialist heritage in a period of social and political radicalization. And we aim to examine how local political elites become agents of heritage reconstruction in such a context. We also wanted to examine how heritage reconstruction and war memorialization is used for promoting more inclusive identities and interethnic unity in the local community. It was a city that in the first multi-party elections in 1990 voted for anti-nationalist parties, where in the rest of Bosnia nationalist parties were victorious, dominated. During the war, Tuzla was also quite interesting as an example of a local community and a local political leadership that tried to prevent nationalist forces from taking control in the city and tried also to keep down the interethnic tensions. The same political leadership stayed in power after the post-war period. The main site that we investigated in Tuzla was the Slana Banja Memorial Complex. The Slana Banja area site was selected by the socialist authorities in the late 1950s for the construction of a memorial cemetery for the partisan fighters who fell during the Second World War. And between 1959 and 1974, dozens of memorials and memorial objects were constructed in the area of Slana Banja. After the end of the socialist regime, with the independence of Bosnia and the war that started in 1992, the Slana Banja Memorial Complex was left to neglect. For some years, the complex remained in limbo. The turning point for the reusing of the memorial complex came 6 months before the end of the war in Bosnia, when a terrible civilian tragedy hit the city. On 25th of May 1995, a Bosnian Serb army artillery round hit the pedestrian center of Tuzla in the location called Kapia and killed 71 civilians. The Tuzla leadership tried to keep the local community united in that difficult moment after this event. And they decided to bury all the victims together, irrespective of ethnicity and religion, in a single burial site on Slana Banja. And that was the event that changed the evolution of the Slana Banja. The decision encountered at the time fierce opposition by the Islamic community, which is the official Islamic religious institution in the country, and by radical nationalist forces. They objected the joint burial of Muslims and non-Muslims together. The local authorities remained faithful to the non-nationalist principles and went ahead with the joint burial despite the nationalist opposition. The joint burial was a demonstration of a spirit of non-nationalism in the face of radical nationalist opposition to Tuzla. And the anniversary of May 25th tragedy continues to this day to be a very important event. It's commemorated every year, and it's in fact considered by the local community as the most important wartime commemoration event. The Slana Banja Memorial Complex was the site used for the local authorities' demonstration of interethnic unity after the Kapia massacre. The joint burial provided the impetus for revisiting and reusing the socialist era memorial complex. And after the war, the city's leaders reconsidered the role of the site in the new era. They constructed a new part of the complex which would contain the memorials dedicated to the 92-95 war, but they also decided to preserve and illustrate the socialist era heritage. They renovated most of the socialist era heritage and commissioned the construction of new partisan memorials. It's interesting also that the local authorities consciously tried to prevent the memorial complex from becoming a sterile location that would be used only for anniversaries and commemorations and such events. Instead, they turned the entire complex into a beautiful park, beautiful location in the center of the city, which is on a daily basis used and frequented by hundreds of citizens. The transformed Slana Banja Memorial Complex is an expression of the local authorities' political vision for a new Bosnia that would be less ethnically divided, more inclusive and oriented towards civic values. For example, the Tuzla authorities prioritize the reconstruction of heritage that is not directly associated with particular groups in Bosnia. They try to tone down explicit references to cultural elements that divide the Bosnian groups, such as, for example, religion. And they try to promote secular and civic-oriented cultural references. All these go against the dominant trends in Bosnia, which prioritize ethnic and religious elements of identity and corresponding cultural heritage construction and reconstruction. The Tuzla narrative highlights two important historical periods: the partisan struggle of the Second World War and the 92-95 war for Bosnian independence, and promotes a strong association of these two periods. The partisan struggle in the 92-95 war are depicted as key anti-fascist and anti-nationalist struggles in Bosnian history. This association of the two is reinforced each time state and local anniversaries are marked on Slana Banja. The Tuzla narrative indeed promotes a more inclusive and less divisive Bosnia. But despite the best intentions of its creators and the efforts of the Tuzla elites, the narrative and the corresponding heritage management cannot easily bridge ethnic divisions and cleavages that were created in the 92-95 Bosnian War. For example, most Bosnian Serbs and Bosnian Croats, especially those that did not side with the Bosnian army during that war, still do not find the Tuzla promoted narrative very appealing. Case in point is the annual commemorations of the Barčanska Malta incident from May 1992, which are held independently in Tuzla every year by two different groups, Republika Srpska Serbs and one group, and the Tuzla authorities, the other group. The CRIC research in Tuzla shows that cultural heritage can be very effective means for giving meaning and content to a political vision and a political project. In fact, we see that in Tuzla political ideas become truly comprehensive when they manage to express their values through heritage management. Cultural heritage has also been shown to be a very effective medium for educating communities, especially the younger generation in post-war societies. The Tuzla case also demonstrates how reconstruction can be used for promoting more inclusive identities and less ethnically divided local communities. The Slana Banja Memorial Complex is an interesting example of this. It's interesting how it goes against the dominant trends in heritage management in post-war Bosnia. Finally, CRIC research shows also the limitations of heritage projects, especially when we're talking about sharp political divisions. These cannot easily be bridged through heritage management, especially if the political and social environment is not yet truly, genuinely conducive to such deep change.